In this part, we're going to test out our GraphQL, and also we're going to create some mutations, and then we can use our schema to also perform some operations from the GraphQL playground. I'm going to go over to app folder. I'm going to create a folder called graph. We have the GraphQL folder here, and inside that folder I'm going to create another folder called mutations. I'm going to create two files called, we have the auth_mutator.php, and also we have the message mutator. I'm going to create a class here. So inside here, I'm just going to call that the name of the file, which is called the auth mutator. Please don't forget to add the PHP at the top over there. And as well, I'm going to just come here as well, and you can call this a class of message mutator. So that solves it for both of them. Inside this auth mutator, we do have some public functions. We have the first one to be the, we have the first one to be the register. So I can just put this because we have 4 functions we are going to be needing. So we have the login, we have the load user, and also we have the get all users. These are the 4 functions that we're gonna, or 4 public functions we are gonna need for the auth mutator. And one more thing we have to do is to make sure we give this a namespace, which we're gonna be using whenever we need. And inside our message mutator as well, I'm just going to grab this quickly. I can just paste that. So right here, we just need only 2 public functions. The first one is the send message, and also the second one is the load P2P chat. So we have the public function of send message, and then we have the public function of load P2P chat. So this doesn't just go like that. There are some arguments that we do pass in all these parentheses, but as we progress, we're gonna do that quietly. I'm gonna go over to the schema itself, which is in the root folder of the project, I think in GraphQL. I'm not going to do much with the query. I'm going to do a lot of things with the type and also the schema. For the query, this is not a GraphQL tutorial. This is not a perfect GraphQL tutorial. I'll come up with a tutorial with that hopefully later that will teach you an in-depth way of using GraphQL. So for now, let's just proceed. And quickly, I'm going to put all the type that we need. We have the type of load user. And for this load user, inside of it, we do have to remember the token, which is a string. We do have the logged in, which is as well a string. This is supposed to be a Boolean value, but for some reason, let's just keep it this way. Then we have the email, which is also a string. We have the token that is supposed to be returned whenever we load a user, which is a string as well. Then we have access. This access is a Boolean, whether the user has access to proceed. Then we have name, which is as well a string. I think the name can be anywhere, maybe at the top, but it's not bad. And with the help of GraphQL, you can even restrict this that it must be mandatory, or we are gonna throw an error. You can put something like exclamation mark or exclamation sign over there, but I'm not gonna do that. Maybe on your own convenience, you can just play around. Like I said, this is not a perfect GraphQL tutorial. I'm going to come up with a video on that. Then we have a type of get all users. So the get all users, what it simply does is to return an array of other users. So if you can recall, during our types I mentioned something like load other users. So we have to get all users, which is just a string, an array of strings. Then we have a type of user. So each user do have an email, which is a string, and I can just put that exclamation sign there, but like I said, it's not necessary. Then we have a password, which is as well a string. Then we have the username, which is a string. Then we have the name, which is also a string. So you can always put these or that. I think it's good for us to do that, because whenever we want to register, a user must have email, username, and name. For password, we may not necessarily use a string. We can use a mixed value. So let's just leave it that way. Another thing we have is a type of error data. I do feel like this is MongoDB, so that's why I'm putting that. So whenever we have an error data, we just have to return a message of string. And also we have the register schema. So you can as well call this schema or types, whatever you want to call it, is not bad. Then for each user, whenever we register, we have to return the user details. And we know we already do have a type user here, so we don't have to like do something like email and do many of those things. We can just simply use that user over there. Then we have the logged in, which is a boolean. I think at the end I didn't even use this logged in. I think I use only registered, but let's just leave it in case we do have an error. But we're gonna fix everything as we progress. So we have the remember token, which is a string. We have the error data, and the error data, if you can recall, we do have the error data type over there. Then we have the registered, which is also a boolean. I think I don't need this, so we can just get rid of it. We do have also the login schema. Here we have the user as well. We have the remember token. Is basically most of these things, so just copy and paste. And then we do have the registered as well. Then we have the logged in, which is also a boolean. I don't think I need the registered over here, so this one is on logged in and the other one is on registered, which is very good. Then we have the type of message or messages. So you should definitely know that every message is gonna have sender email, the user that is sending. Then we have the receiver email, which is the user that is receiving. So make sure everything is correct. And then we have the text message, which is also a string. You can also make this mandatory, like adding all this here, because our message is not gonna be empty. I have to change this to message, not messages. And then we do have also the time the user send the message. The time is very necessary because we're gonna be using this time to actually sort the message when we return that. And there are other types as well we need. We have the peer-to-peer chats data. So we have an ID of string. We have the text message, which is a string. We have the sender email, which is a string. We have the receiver email as well, which is a string. Then we have the sent ads, which is also a string. So I guess you might be confused, but let me just put this down, then I can do some little explanation. Then we have the P2P chat, and it just messages. Then we have the P2P chat data. What you see here is actually very simple. Like whenever we click on a user to chat a particular user, we do load messages. So these messages are gonna have an ID, text message, the sender email, receiver email, and also a string or a string of sent at or the time it was sent. And it's gonna be an array of messages. That's exactly what you see. It's gonna be an array of messages. There is nothing more or nothing less there. The next thing we have to now focus on is on the mutation, and that's going to help us to actually use the GraphQL playground to actually test out one or two things we have done here, so that you can actually see how we can use this and use it together with the auth mutator. And right away I can just put a mutation here, and mutation is going to have an object which is going to contain all the mutation that we need. So we have the register user. The register user is gonna this is gonna be a parenthesis, of course, and inside there is gonna accept some couple of arguments. We have the email, which is a string and it's mandatory. And one thing that I do like about GraphQL is that it has directives. So directives are like rules it must follow. It kind of also helps to use the Laravel authenticators or Laravel verifiers. An example of these are like these rules. We have a rules of, we want to apply a rules of the password must be at least minimum of 4. Then we have the name of string. We also have the password, which is a string, and then it's gonna have a rules a minimum of 3. Then we have the username as well. We have the username, which is a string, and we have a minimum of 3 as well. And each of these, let's say whenever we make a mutator, or whenever we use the mutation, we do have to return a data from our response. So that data we also have to like tell our GraphQL that what you are only presenting is this limited data. You are not just sending all the data off. And that's gonna come from our register schema. And then we can actually select a field from our mutator, which is going to take a resolver. And we're gonna call that auth mutator. And then we can specify the functions that we are using, so which is register. I think this kind of a little bit of stress. What I can simply do is let me just create one more type here called test register. This test register is going to return only the email, and let's just give it a string and make it mandatory, and also the password for now. I just want to return only this for now. Let me just take away the register schema. We're gonna do that later, so you can quickly understand how we can do that. Then we do have also the login mutator. Let me just quickly do that, and that's the two things we are gonna do first. Then gradually we can do other ones. We have the password, which is a string as well, and I want to return I want the data returned as a test register, which is not bad. So then we can select our let me just paste that there and bring this up, so that shouldn't confuse you. It's just using theme. And we can quickly go ahead and refresh this, and hopefully we should get an error. So I think the error is already showing over there. Right here you could see the error is already showing. So the way we can solve that is I think it's trying to already make a request. It shouldn't. I actually don't know why it's showing us that error, but what I can simply do is to write one mutation. So let's just go ahead and write a mutation. So inside this mutation we have the probably I'm getting it wrong. So we have the mutation. Right here we have the register user, which is going to take in some things. And we have the email. I'm gonna use sam@gmail.com. Then we have the name. I usually like to copy this and not waste my time. And I'll just go ahead and paste that and try to format everything to be fine. So I have sam@gmail.com. Then we have the name, let's say username. Then we have the password 1234. Then we have the username. I can just give this user 1. And for the return, all I just want to return is the email, and also I can return the password. Let's just play that and see. We're actually getting an error. I don't know why. And checking on this. So we have cannot pass the unexpected character at the bottom, which is on register, and I think we are getting something wrong here. I'm putting this. Let me just refresh and let's see if that error insists. Cannot pass the unexpected character, comma. I think we've done the first one. Probably I did it here again. That's why. I can also refresh. Then light has fade while showing that at least we have that first error fixed. Let's just go ahead and fix the second one. So guys, I just clicked on play and I don't think we do have any other error. One thing I forgot to do was that I did actually show you how to return this. This is nothing much, but if you check from our test register, we are just returning the email and the password. That's exactly what I return here. So let's say I return the email. Let's say the email at gmail.com, and then we have the password. And if we save that and play, you could see it's exactly what it returned for us. It returned that object for us, and we have the email and also the password. So it shows us that we can now use our GraphQL from this playground. Let's also fix for login. Then for this login, what we are simply returning here, it's exactly the same thing. I can just go ahead and grab these lines of code over here and paste it. And if we come over here, we can change this to login. And for the login, we just need the email and the password. And play. It says you cannot query field login. I think that's login user. So sorry for those dogs barking. And you could see right now we have it fixed, and that's it. We can now use our GraphQL from this playground. I mean. So guys, you could see that whenever we pass some data or some argument from this parentheses, we actually need to get that from our GraphQL in order to be able to use those data to do one or two things we want to do from our backend. So let's just go ahead and do that. GraphQL gives us that ability. We have to use the root value. We have an array of arguments. So these are the arguments that we're gonna need. And if I come here, right here, what I simply do is to, let's say, grab the arguments or credentials. what I simply do is to say credentials is equal to from the array of arguments I only want to get, I think I have to import that array. Just hit enter. From the array of arguments I only want to get, we have to pass the arguments, then we have to get the keys, we have the password as well. Then if we have more things that we pass, we can actually grab that. So right here, all I can simply say is to use credentials. I can pass the let's say the email. Then we also have to use the credentials. I can pass the password, and I can just play this. That's for login. So let me just do this and play it. You could see it's exactly grabbing this email I passed in from this GraphQL playground and also the password. Same thing with the login as well. You can just grab this. So these are the two things I need for now. I don't need any other thing. And also you have to grab the arguments or credentials, and then we can just return this over here, and that solves it. So when I come here and put login, I can get rid of this and get rid of this and hit enter. I usually forget that it is login user. So right here you could see it returned the data immediately without wasting of our time. And that's it for using GraphQL. Then for other ones, we're gonna fix that. But for now, all we just need is to register and also to log in. For us to be able to register a user, we have to create a database. I'm going to create a fresh database called Laravel Instagram Chats. And just click OK. I'm going to copy this name. And quickly, I'm going to come over to the environment variables. I'm going to locate the database name, and I have to change this from Laravel to Laravel Instagram Chats. And simply, you can always run PHP migrate. We can run PHP artisan migrate, which is going to migrate all our migrations from the database files to our table. So let me click on that, and Laravel Instagram Chat, you could see we now have some data has been injected here. We have the users, and all these things are coming from our database migration. So we are only going to create one migration, which is the messages migration, but not yet. Let's just go ahead and do other relevant things before we get there. And this is already okay and convenient for us to work with. I'm going to go over to this auth mutator. One thing I like Laravel GraphQL about is, or GraphQL on itself is the fact that we don't need Postman to do any test. We don't need any Postman. We just have to do everything from this interface, which kind of gives us a control over our back end. Then we fix the errors and return only the particular details that we need. Right here, I'm going to clear this, and we are going to first of all check if we do have some couple of data. I'm going to check if there are from the credentials we do have a name, or I can just paste this down a couple of times. So we do have a password. We are only checking if any of these exist from the credentials we grab from our arguments. In case any of these doesn't exist, we have to return an error instead of us to proceed. And I want to return an error data, which is going to return a message of please fill all fields. And that's it. Always make sure you add your parent your quotes, because PHP is just something that frustrates someone sometimes. Then we do have registered, which is false. So this is just a boolean value. And if we check inside our schema, we can see that in the registration schema, we do have a user. We are either returning a user with the remember token, or we're returning an error data or a boolean value, which is going to be either true or false. And right here you can see we have the error data, and the error data do have an error data, so spelled out correctly, and it does have a message. When I come here and change this to register user, and let's say I send this, it's required but not provided. And what is required? The name. We didn't add the name yet, so we have the name, which is Samuel, and I think we do have one more thing, which is the username. So guys, always spell things correctly. So we have the username, which is Sam, or let's just say user1, and I'm gonna send that again on undefined index name, and that's probably because we've not yet grabbed it from our arguments. And as well, we have to also grab the username, and let's send that once more. Cannot return null for non-nullable value. Let's not pay attention to this error. What we can simply do is to rechange this from test user to register schema. Then if we get an error, we can now try to fix that. So we cannot query a field of email. So what are we returning from our schema? Let's just quickly check. From our schema, we don't have an email, which is of course true. So we don't have an email or password over there. What we are simply returning are other things, and one of those things is the user, which is gonna have the name, the email, and also the username. I do always make mistakes over there. Then we have the token, the error data, which is the message, and then we have is authenticated. Let's just say registered. I'm just used to those words, so that's why I can just play that. Let's see, we cannot query field of token. I think we do have a token. Okay, we have remember token over here. So let's play that again. And the error we are getting is normal, because if you check from our GraphQL right here, we don't have any null value we are sending over here. So every other thing passed, which means that we don't have something missing. And our GraphQL cannot even allow us to even test this with empty values, because they are all mandatory. And you can see here we have the string, and also we have a minimum value to provide for each of these. Let's just proceed. Secondly, it's we have to check if email exists. So if the current email which is trying to be registered exists, we have to handle that error. So I can say we have to grab the user from the model, where you can use the where clause and say where the email is equals to. We can now grab the email from the credentials as well. And also we have to check the first scenario, the first instance. So this is either going to return a true. Yeah, it's going to return a true. Then if this is true, we have to return an error data once more. So we can say error data, it's equal to an object of message. Then we can pass the message, which is sorry, email exists. Then we can also we have to complete the data as well. So not only that, we have the registered, we can set that to false, and then we have the remember token. I think I copied that, yeah. So I can just paste that and we can just put that null. So in case the first email do exist, we get this. Of course, even if we send this, we are not gonna get something like that. Then lastly, we have to store the data in our database. So the way we can do that, store the registering user or store the new user to database. The way we can do that is to use the try catch. So try catch kind of give us ability to even catch an error and display it back in our GraphQL. So this is from this is from exception, and we're gonna give that E. And then inside this try block, first of all, I'm gonna generate a remember token. This remember token, yeah, we have to generate a remember token because we have to send back a remember token to the client, which is going to be stored on the store or also on the local storage. Then we have the remember token, which is going to be a random string. And then we have to randomly generate a string and then give it a length, let's say a length of 100. So this string class here is coming from the support, so you could see it's coming from the Illuminate support. So just go ahead and grab that. I imported it quickly at the top here, so there's nothing there. So just go ahead and do it quickly. And then we have to now create a user to store. Then we have the new user. Then from our database, we have to create right here. So I have to make sure this is imported correctly. We have the name of the user, we have the email, we have the password, we have the remember token as well. I think I have that in my clipboard. So for the name, we have to grab that from the credentials name, from the email as well, from the credentials, then from the password. Then the remember token has to be the one we generated, which is the remember token. And then one more thing we have to do, this password, we don't just store password directly like that. We have to like hash the password. So we are going to use the hash function from Laravel. Then I'm going to make one, then just wrap everything there. So that solves it. And then we can then beneath that, we have to return. So this is where the error stops. Then we have the new user that we just created. So right here we have the email of the user, which is the user email. We can also grab this from this user, but it's also okay for us to grab everything from the request, in as much as it has always passed all these things. We just have to grab it from the request. So whenever the user stores or is being created, we just have to grab it directly from the request. We don't need to grab it from the database. Then we have the username, which is the username. We also have to grab the name, which is the username. Then we have to put in our registered, which is the true. So guys, don't forget this is not inside here, so it's outside, and make sure you format everything properly. Then we have the remember token, which is the the member token we generated. In case we do have an error, we just have to return as usual. We have the error data, which is going to return an array with a key value of message, and the message is gonna be the get message. So in case we have an error, we're gonna get a message, and also we have to set registered to false. So let's just save that and make sure you always do things properly in order to avoid an error. I'm going to click on register once more. It says user.username cannot return null for user.username. So I don't know why username is giving us a lot of problems, but it shouldn't, by the way, because right here we have the username, and right here the username here, let's just say username value. So it's already have that user registered. I'm going to quickly click on the database, click on users. I want to get rid of that user so we can recreate it again. So let's just send this. Okay, it's actually been registered, but the username returning here, it's not returning normal. So we have to, okay, I suspect it's coming from here because we don't have a username over here, which is going to come from the credentials username as well. So we also have a user being created. Let's just empty this table and then click on this again. Username. Let's just check in our database. Check in the users. So we have name, email address, password. Okay, guys, I know exactly what's the problem now. So the problem right here is because in our migration, we didn't add the username, which is something we forgot to do. So in this create users, we don't have the username. So the username is a string and must be unique. So we have username, which is a string, and every username must be unique. So no two users can have one single username. And what we can simply do is to run the PHP artisan fresh. I think it's migrates fresh, something like that. So that's going to recreate the migrations for us. And right here, when I click on users, I should see username. So we have the username, and right now let's go ahead and click. So okay, we already have that. So it says username doesn't have a value, so we have to insert that value. I think one thing I can do is to come over to these migrations once more. Let me say I give this a default of empty value, and let me run this command once more to refresh the database and click on this. The username is just a problem for us. I don't know why. I really don't know why. Let's check in our schema. We do have from the register schema, we have the we have the username over here, which is going to be a string. So I don't think we even need that. Maybe probably is because, no, I'm not trying to return any username because we do have a user over there. So we are not trying to return any username there, but we are trying to return a username over here. So let me just remove this as being mandatory. So guys, please just follow along. We are almost done with this part. And you can just click that again and we don't have a username. I don't know why, but right here inside our users, we don't. Did we have? Okay, we don't also have a username over here, but so let me just quickly figure that out.